welcome back to Stories for Shabbos. If you hear about somebody who is going through something difficult, maybe they're not feeling well, or maybe they're sick, or maybe something else is tough in their life, of course, we try to help them in every way that we can, and one of the ways that we help them is we daven for them. That's a very important part of our tefillah, that we don't just daven for myself and my family, but we daven for all of our friends and all of the Jewish people, everybody who needs some extra tefillos. I have a great story about somebody who teaches us this lesson. There was a huge Talmud Chacham, a Torah giant, and a great tzaddik named Rav Aaron Kotler. He died about 60 or 70 years ago. He was the Rosh Yeshiva and the founder of the yeshiva in Lakewood, that is one of the biggest yeshivos in the entire world today. But he wasn't only known for his Torah brilliance and the amazing shiurim he gave and the svarim that he wrote, but he was also known for his love of every single Jew who he treated and cared for like his own family. When Rav Aaron Kotler was a little older, he got sick, and unfortunately he started to forget a lot of the things that he knew. His memory wasn't as good as it had been when he was younger. Have you ever met someone who's a little bit older and sometimes they forget things a little bit? So Rav Aaron Kotler, when he got a little bit sick, was starting to forget things. And he was even nervous that he was beginning to forget the words of a davening. Shmona Esrei, that he had said 3 times a day for so many years, he was starting to forget. But he wanted to make sure that he still davened every single day. So he asked one of his students, one of his Talmidim, I think he was even in the hospital maybe, to stand next to him and say each word of the Shmona Esrei one at a time, so Rav Aaron Kotler could repeat it after him. That way he could still daven and make sure he didn't miss or skip or forget any words. So the student was doing this for him, and he was saying, Baruch, Baruch, Ata, Hashem. We don't have to do it for every single word of Shemona Esrei, but you get the point. And Rav Aaron Kotler was repeating after him, word for word. And then they got up to a bracha in the middle of Shemona Esrei. That is the bracha of Rifa'enu. It's where we daven that Hashem should give a refuah, a healing to everybody who's sick and needs some healing from Hashem. And there's a little place, it actually says it in the Siddur, in the middle of Rifa'enu, where if you want and you know and you're thinking of someone, you can add in their name, so that you're not just davening for everybody. Of course, we think of everybody. But if you have somebody specific who you know, you can put their name in to daven for them, that Hashem should heal them. And when they got up to that point in Rifa'enu, Rav Aaron Kotler, whose memory was not so good anymore, to the extent that he couldn't even remember all the words of Shemona Esrei, started all of a sudden just saying names by heart. Names of people who were sick and who had asked him to daven for them, because people used to send names to Rav Aaron Kotler so that the great tzaddik could daven for them. And those names he never forgot. He was able to name dozens of names, saying perfectly their first name, their middle name, their mother's name, and the Talmud couldn't believe it. He can barely remember the words of Shemona Esrei. He's not even sure he knows the words of his own davening. But when it comes to the name of somebody who needs a refuah, the name of somebody else who needs some help, he never forgot it. That's how important it was to Rav Aaron Kotler to daven for somebody else. When I'm davening for myself, that I should be healthy, when I'm davening for myself, that I should have enough money, when I'm davening for myself, that I should have wisdom, or that I should do tshuva, so of course that is so important. But when he got old and when he got sick, he started forgetting some of those words. But when somebody else is sick and needs our extra tefillos, that he never forgot. Because to him, that was the most important part. Every time that we daven, we should make sure that we're always davening for ourselves and for our family, but also always make sure that we think of somebody else or some other people who should also be included in our tefillos. Good Shabbos, everyone.
Good Shabbos.
Shua, you had a question?
Why didn't he just use a sitter?
Why didn't he just use a siddur? I think because he wanted to make sure we had a good story for Stories for Shabbos many years later. Just kidding. I don't know. That's a good question. Why didn't he use a siddur? Maybe he was old. He was also couldn't see so well, so it was hard for him to hold the siddur or to see the siddur, or maybe he didn't read as well. That's a good question. I'm not sure.